get back to the question that was asked, can the system be programmed, be set up to respond to names of artifacts by voice? And of course the answer is yes. Actually, I think the demonstration that Jeremy showed, he asked, show me the Victoria Cross. So that's one of the medals in the collection, but any of them that are available should work. So I can try to do a quick demo of that now. Before I do, I just wanted to add, we've also set up kind of a mock-up actually of what we call our privacy curtains. In certain scenarios, providing COVID screening answers, contact tracing information, any other kind of scenario where the data that is being provided to AVA by the visitor or the user, if it's confidential, if it might be sensitive, they may not want everyone around to be able to get that information as well. So that's why we've created these, the privacy curtains concept. I guess I should say it's not necessarily our creation, but the idea is a little bit unique of what we're trying to do.
Good morning.
So in addition to the fact that people may be a little bit sensitive about information being shared and even displayed on screen, we also have, I mean, you've heard it yourselves, audio challenges sometimes. There are a lot of conversations going on around AVA or around the Master Corporal Lana station. She can get confused just in the sense that she's listening to multiple conversations, trying to transcribe and understand all of them at once. And that does tend to cause issues. So to try to get around that as well, our privacy curtains are also meant to block sound. So I just sort of did a bit of a mock-up in a real world application. We could put privacy curtains all around the system and just provide a little bit of an entryway through the curtains for a visitor
I'm Master Corporal Lana,
or user
virtual agent for the Ontario
to get in and get access to the system. Even in terms of letting people interact with an exhibit without being interrupted by other people and without maybe, for example, if there's video files and audio clips that people can access, that might create a little bit of noise in the area as well. We want to try to limit that so that it's not disturbing to other people around. So that's what the privacy curtains are meant to do. And we're going to be setting up the rest of this system, and we'll try to do a demo this afternoon and some testing to make sure that it's working. But just to give you an idea, they're just velour curtains like you might use on a stage. So they can look nice and hopefully work well as well. Any other questions then before we wrap up?
Yes, so to follow up on that question about program the system to display artifacts by name. She also said she was thinking displaying by person rather than metal type, and asked if you can cross-reference them.
Displaying by how was that? Sorry, can you repeat that question?
It says, I was thinking by person rather than metal type, and can you cross-reference them?
So you mean, and actually, we can probably open up the floor. So if people want to talk and say and just ask their questions directly, by all means, let's do that. I think the question being asked is about a certain medal that was awarded to someone, for example, a Victoria Cross being awarded for valor in combat or something like that. Now, right now, currently, we don't have the level of detail of certain medals were awarded to certain people for certain actions. That is actually something that could be done, but it would take a little more work, and we would have to go through all that sort of training of, there's a whole document that describes, for example, every Victoria Cross that was awarded, what they were awarded for and who they were awarded to. We could ingest that document and add it as a sort of a frequently asked question list in a similar way to to some of the questions about, what can you do at the museum that Jeremy was showing. So we could even do exactly that, or there are other ways that we could accomplish the same thing depending on really what we're trying to accomplish, or what we're trying to make easy for people to understand, I guess.
And
Does that answer the question?
we have another question as well. It says, what dollar amount would we be applying for to install this type of technology if we were looking for installing 3 of these devices?
That's a very good question, and I'm very happy to answer. So first of all, that seems to be a two-part question. I think part of it is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but part of it would be, should we apply for funding from, for example, the Museum's Assistance Program, Digital Access to Heritage, or something like that? And of course, the answer is yes. In that case, we're happy to work with any museum or cultural institution who would like to apply and use our system as part of the application. And in that case, the funding can cover all the work to implement the system. There are limits on how much you can spend on capital, but definitely buying AVA stations, even if you needed, for example, to buy digital cameras to capture pictures of artifacts, other kinds of equipment that are necessary for doing the digitization of the artifacts, as well as providing the display and access to the interactive exhibits. All of that would be eligible for MAP funding under this program, as far as I understand it, and even the staff time to do that. So if you had staff working on taking pictures of the artifacts, that can be added. So the application in that case is kind of all encompassing, and Sam can certainly get into more details on that, but the idea would be you put all the project items together, any of the hardware that you might need, the software and services to run the system, and all the work to implement the project. And all of that would go under that funding application. Now, we're happy, of course, to work with museums and cultural institutions on any kind of funding application, or on any basis of, we just want to try it. We don't want to go to all the trouble of applying for funding. Hey, if you've got funding and you're willing to pay for 1 or 2, we can definitely supply them. I will say, though, it's not just as simple as how much does the hardware cost. We do have some software costs as well. And that software is provided basically on a software as a service basis. And most likely, I assume, most museums would probably want some help running the system. And we can help with that as well. So we can put all of that together on a monthly or annual service plan. And our standard licensing model for smaller museums actually would allow you to run as from anywhere from 1 to 4 AVA units as a complete system, monthly or yearly. And there are different hardware options and different availability, unfortunately, due to the logistics and supply chain challenges. So we'd have to have a specific conversation to understand, what kind of time frame is considered, and how many units would you want? Do you need help with installing them? Actually, literally, we can help, or we have partners who could help with delivering and setting up the system in your location. We can help with setting up the exhibits themselves, uploading all the content, and so forth. But all of that is somewhat subject to what you would want help with. And so most of that you can consider optional. Customizing the system, creating your own version of AVA, of course, is something we're happy to offer as well. Just to give you an idea of potential hardware costs, we're probably looking at a starting point of somewhere around $6,000 per system just for the hardware.
All right. We don't have another question. Oh, yes, we do. Well, there is a comment that says it's pretty cool how she smiles when she sees someone, which, yeah, it's pretty awesome. And we have a question. It says, what type of new features are you planning on adding in the future?
Well, there's lots of them. And in fact, it's not just a question of new features, it's a question of even what other markets might this type of solution apply to, and how could we make it work in those kinds of markets. So hospitality in general, we could have an AVA, checking people in as they arrive at a hotel. She probably wouldn't be wearing camo in that case, but she'd be a friendly concierge check-in agent at the front desk of a hotel. Other markets that we're looking at as well include things like healthcare, even checking into the hospital or checking in to get a COVID test. These are definitely things that AVA could help with. As far as museums go, we've talked a lot about the interactive features and adding French language support, but in the medium term as well, we're definitely looking to expand this solution and make it available potentially anywhere in the world, and that means adding other sort of natural language, localized language support. So adding the ability to interact in Spanish, French, which we've already talked about, German even, Italian, Chinese, any of the more popular languages especially, those are definitely things we're looking at. And actually on the other end of the spectrum, one of the things we're thinking about even is, geez, there are cultures and languages in the world that are less commonly spoken now. And in fact, it's a potential issue of a loss of culture and language in some cases. So one of the other areas we're looking at is, gee, could we teach Ava, or whatever version of the character we would name her, could we teach her to interact in some of these less commonly spoken languages, just to help retain that culture?